Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, Oregon, the state of Oregon, the state that voted for Joe Biden by 17 percentage points in the 2020 election, may be poised to elect a Republican governor. Yes, it usually seems like every midterm year there's going to be a surprise flip from red to blue in a deep red state or blue to red in a deep blue state. And this year, that surprise flip very may well be coming from the state of Oregon. We saw Kansas flip in 2018. We saw Maryland flip in 2014. Oregon might be that governorship that we see flip this cycle, mainly because of the fact that there is a third-party independent that is potentially taking votes away from the Democrats. However, the Democrat is just so unpopular that in a head-to-head poll, when you take the third party out, which is basically run to the center of Tina Kotek, you see Drazan actually doing better, the Republican nominee for governor there, winning by 6 percentage points without any undecideds in a head-to-head race, which is very interesting because a lot of people said as we get closer to the general election, the support for the incumbent will likely go down and Kotek will likely be doing better. However, maybe that's not the case, and Johnson's gaining in some polls, ironically enough, but even so, you take Johnson out of the equation, Drazan may still end up doing respectably well, and respectably well enough to actually win in this national environment in a deep blue state because the former governor that is leaving office is extremely unpopular. So we're going to dive into this, but first I have to tell you guys about our latest sponsor over at the Epoch Times. What is the Epoch Times? The Epoch Times brings you breaking U.S. and world news on all your devices and original Epoch TV programs like popular podcasts and award-winning documentaries. Why do we trust the Epoch Times? They report information, news, and facts that other media ignore. They focus on clear, fact-based journalism without spin or hidden agendas so you can arrive at your own conclusions. Despite the attacks from many sides and the defamation from other media, the Epoch Times continue to dedicate themselves to reporting the truth. So give them a try. We think you'd like it. We have a special offer for our viewers here, $1 for 2 months. So go to epochtime.es/redeagle and subscribe. So this poll that came out today was absolutely huge, and it's not the only poll that's shown this, by the way. This isn't me taking a Republican-leaning outlier poll and just running with it to fit the narrative. There's many polls that basically outline this, and a lot of people understand it. And this honestly may be an Alaska situation, but the inverse. There's no ranked choice voting. However, you have basically two Democrats in the race. One of them is more centrist than the other, hence why she's running as an independent. And then you have Tina Kotek, who is attacking Johnson and is calling Johnson a right-winger, basically, saying that she would usher in a right-wing Oregon. And causing this division in the party, couple that with Johnson's increase in some polls, basically shows that this is a disaster for the Democrats in Oregon, the same way that the Alaska primary is a disaster for Republicans up in Alaska, which may hand the Democrats 2 years of that House seat up there because you can't see really anything getting worked out between the two candidates, and they're fighting up in Oregon, and just like they're fighting in Alaska, and in the head-to-head race, it doesn't matter. Drazan's basically just talking about the homeless crisis. She's going out there and she's talking about issues that matter to Oregonians, and it's gaining traction for her. Does that mean that I expect her to be some solid, authentic conservative governor? Not necessarily, but I wouldn't say that she's exactly a Charlie Baker type or a Larry Hogan type either. I think she'd probably be in the middle of that spectrum there, but still for Oregon, that is very good news up there because it is such a safe blue state. That doesn't mean Oregon is going to trend Republican at the presidential level, at least not right now. It doesn't exactly mean that Oregon is on the verge of flipping in the Senate race. However, because of this field, it's very possible that Drazan comes away with a victory more so than originally expected. And you look at the other polls here. There hasn't exactly been a poll that has had Kotek in the lead since back in June, which somehow had Betsy Johnson at 30%, which is likely not going to happen. But what we do know is Signal dropped a poll soon after that had Drazan in the lead. Johnson was at 24. Johnson was at 18 in this other poll from DHM Research. And in that specific poll, Drazan had the lead. And then in Clout Research, in their last poll, Johnson had a lower percentage than she had in this poll. And even so, Christine Drazan had the lead. And if anything, Johnson is stabilizing at 15%. There's really no sign that she's really falling. But even if she does fall a little bit, it does not necessarily mean that Drazan would not be favored or that Drazan is DOA. And you're looking at the fact that they're debating Drazan's messaging for Oregon is relatively decent overall and is something that can appeal to independents enough to get her over the 42% margin or so at the end of the day. That's going to arguably be good enough to make Oregon a state that can flip this election cycle, just in terms of the governorship. Now, I'm not saying it's guaranteed to happen because things do change, but Drazan definitely right now, given some of the recent polling we've seen over the past couple of days, given some of the recent metrics that we've looked at, I would say that she's probably the narrow favorite as of now. So what would her pathway to victory be? Because you look at this state, this is a state that Biden won by close to 17 percentage points or so. And this is true. And this map is not favorable for Republicans. However, you do remember that back in the 2018 midterms, Kate Brown, the current governor, was relatively unpopular. And despite it being a blue wave, she only beat Newt Bueller by approximately 6-7 points or so, which is really telling. And you look at that map there, and it's very possible that Drazan can perform in line, maybe a little bit less because Johnson's there, and she's probably going to get a lesser total vote share in terms of percentage-wise than Newt Bueller had. But at the end of the day, it's very possible that she gets 42%. She starts, running up the margins in the rural areas and possibly cutting into some of the, exurban margins there, where Republicans will need to run up the margins in order to remain competitive. But even so, it's not just the map or like doing really well in blue areas. It's also where you see the divide in some of the blue areas between Kotek and Johnson, because Kotek is tied to the previous administration. She was the Speaker of the House under the Brown governorship there, which is extremely unpopular, by the way, and remains extremely unpopular. And if Kate Brown was up for re-election this year in a head-to-head, I'm pretty sure that Christine Drazan would have the upper hand there, because that's what it's come down to. It's interesting. You're seeing in a lot of these deep blue states, Democrats in trouble. You look at it in New York, you look at it in Washington State, and you're looking at it in Oregon. Does that mean that Republicans are going to win all of these states? No. In fact, the only reason why they're competitive in Oregon is because of that third party. However, you look at the crime policies, you look at the homelessness policies, and they're extremely unpopular, and they are hurting Democrats. You look at the Oregon governorship debate that took place. You saw Betsy Johnson attacking Kotek for the homelessness policy, calling her Tent City Kotek. And this is true. And this is definitely something that is going to harm the Democrats in this state this fall. It is still possible that Kotek could pull off a victory, but the fact that Drazan is favored, the fact that the Democrats can't really galvanize their own party behind one candidate really showcases how incompetent they've been and how Republicans are likely going to pick this one up if this continues, which is big news. And it's definitely a power move to have a governorship in a state that you're not really supposed to have a governorship in. You look at the Democrats winning Kentucky, they're going to tout that as a political victory of some kind. It's kind of a similar thing here up in the state of Oregon, where you will see the same thing potentially happen. In terms of other deep blue states they might be able to pick off, Rhode Island, that's an interesting one because of the unpopular incumbent, the interim governor there, Dan McKee, and his unpopularity. Couldn't even get a third of the vote in the primary. Could that one be competitive at the end of the day? I think it is possible. We'll have to see. We don't really have a whole lot of data for Rhode Island, but it's very likely, in my opinion, that Alan Fung is going to take the 2nd district up there. He won that district when he ran for governor in 2018, which he didn't do nearly as good as he did in 2014, but either way, he still did good enough to win the new district. So we'll see what happens. But either way, it's going to be one to watch on election night. Probably not exactly going to be called on election night because Oregon is Oregon. But we will see. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below. Comment down below. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.